Yeah. All right, welcome everybody. It's Monday, April 25th. This is the Finance Committee. May I have a roll call of the committee members, please?
Yes, Mr. Betcher.
Present.
Mr. Knapp.
Here.
Ms. Norman.
Here.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Pridnall.
Lovely. Hope everybody has had a chance to review the agenda. Can I have a motion to set the agenda and adopt, please?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Nobody registered to address the committee minutes from March 28th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Go. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. With that, we will turn it over to Mr. Lancer for the March financial packet.
All right. If everyone wants to check it out, it was posted late. We had some technical difficulties and personnel challenge that we would deal with, so I want to apologize for the delay, but it has been completed and saved to the website to review. For the month of March, the village had a bank balance of $3.5 million. Of this amount, $3.4 million can be found in the village's primary checking account, while $10,000 is accounted for in the village's two mayor's court accounts. And finally, $121,000 is accounted for in the village's several law enforcement trust accounts. The village had several outstanding payments at the time of the bank reconciliation for March. The number of outstanding payments was 28, in total close to $30,000. As for cleared payments, the village had 93 payments clear of the bank account that totaled $334,000. Of this amount, $275,000 was accounted for in the village's general fund. The remaining balance of that was spread out between several of the village's other funds. This $275,000 figure was $110,000 more than what the village's general fund spent during March of last year. And there's several reasons for that. One is due to scheduling. We had 3 payrolls clear in March. That's the biggest factor there. And then we've also made payments to Deer Park Silverton's Fire Department as required by the service agreement between the village and DPS. Again, that we were still in the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District last year. There were no payments for $45,000 at any point last year to DPS. The top 5 payees for the month were payroll, Deer Park Silverton, JMA. And JMA is the village's engineer, contractor for the engineer. We are having them do some estimates and some engineering on some road projects for the village. Rumpke is our solid waste hauler, and the Jefferson Health Plan, who is the provider for employee health insurance. As for village receipts, the village received 35 payments in March that totaled just north of $1 million. Now, this is eye-popping when you see it. Of this amount, nearly $717,000 was accounted for in the village's general fund. The $717,000 figure was $626,000 more than what the village generated through March of last year. Again, eye-popping and should raise questions. The reason for the substantial increase in general fund revenues for the month can be attributed to two causes. First, the village received its first half allotment of property taxes in March of this year. Unlike last year when we received those in April, if you recall, there was an extension granted in taxes, but income taxes and property taxes by the county because as a response to COVID. So that delayed disbursement from the county auditor to the village's property taxes. Second, the village received several payments from LMFR as required to be received by the village in the village's withdrawal agreement from LMFR. 2 of these were significant payments received by the village and totaled approximately $220,000. Again, this is a new revenue source for the village in fiscal year 22. And in addition to these two payments there, the village also received $54,000 in general fund income tax receipts. That I have a couple other updates, but that is the end of my financial packet update. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone on the committee might have.
Questions, comments, concerns from the committee for the financial packet?
All right. Mr. Betcher wasn't here last time, but he asked that I provide an update on Star Ohio at the last committee meeting. And there were a few further questions about Star, and I provide some clarity, but I don't think I really am in this update. But again, if you recall, the topic of the village joining the state treasurer program, Star Ohio, was the topic of discussion at the last meeting. It was asked that I was tasked with determining the processes for creating a Star Ohio account for the village, as well as attempting to identify some best practices use. So let me start with the best practices. After speaking with peers and representatives from the treasurer's office, it's apparent that most participating jurisdictions use their own formulas when determining the number of resources to be put into the program. Similarly, most participating jurisdictions have their own unique goals and strategies for investment. To say that there's any best practice around participation, I think would be an understatement. So instead, each participating jurisdiction tailors their own individual program to meet their own unique goals and desires. Should the village choose to move forward with the program, the amounts to be entered into the program, the strategies and the goals would need to be identified by the village itself. Big long-winded way of saying it's up to us. Okay? We should identify what our goals and strategies are and tailor our investment strategy. With that said, I've initiated the process for creating an account. The authorization form has been filled out, and I believe Paul will notarize it this week. Once it's notarized, I'll send it to the treasurer's office, and it takes 24 hours after receipt for an account to be created. Once it's created, it's live. We can use it and invest any amount of money we need. Okay? So that's my update around Star Ohio. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any guidelines in our charter around the type of instruments that the village can invest in?
I'm not aware of that.
No, the charter doesn't address it. There might be something that is nebulous in our ordinances that we can take a look at. We had I don't recall, I think most everybody was here probably, I don't think it was Norman was here, nor was Mr. Fletcher, when we talked about this in the council meeting. Ms. Berger was not here either. So I thoroughly endorse doing this because I believe that we need to make money on the money that we have. The thing is we are so close to doing our budget for 2023. I don't want to just make a rash decision and pick a number and put it in that account. So one of the things that we are requiring the departments to do this year is to give us a line by line item detail of all of the budgets. The expectation would be that the department budgets are completed by the middle of May. Any tweaking will get done between then and July. The tax budget is due, do you want to say on July 15th this year?
No, July 20th is when it's required to be done to the county audit.
Okay, so we have council meetings set for the middle of June and the middle of July. In speaking to Ms. Gettian today, which is a story, I told her that our goal is to present the budget to the finance committee at the June meeting. So we can review it. If there's any input the council wants to give on it, we can do that. But I would like to walk out of that meeting in June with a completed budget ready to do with whatever we need to do so we can post it publicly and do all that sort of stuff. So at that time, when we make that proposal, I would also like to say, here's how we want to deal with reserve funds and how we use the start.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that. Just how, in your mind, how does the STAR fund interact with the budget? Because the STAR fund can be fully liquid, and it's more of a savings account versus a separate lockup of funds. So just something to think about. I get where you're coming from. I'm going to challenge it a little bit and say, I don't know that we have to wait so the budgets are finalized before we could sweep $1 million over tomorrow and get it back 3 days later.
If council makes that decision, we'll do what council wants us to do. My recommendation is to do the budget.
The big consideration would be, I assume that we would put a portion of the carryover in store. Once we have the budget completed, we would have a better idea of what the anticipated carryover will be to begin this week. Sure. Whereas now, I think we're going to do some appropriations this evening. I'm not touching on that. We're going to be dipping into the carryover.
I completely respect your recommendation, and I think it's a really great goal for us to say by the end of June, we got to get.
Well, and here's the thing, if we are able, so we don't know, so as you all are aware, this is Mr. Lanzer's latest meeting with us. For a temporary basis, I've rehired Anna Gideon, who is a financial analyst. I don't know if you know Anna. She was here for 3 years. She is a huge contributor to the village's financial turnaround. She knows UAN, she knows budgeting, she knows the appropriations process. She's going to work with us on Mondays and Wednesdays until we get the fiscal officer position filled. Anna is also a very good enforcer in terms of making sure that policies and procedures and stuff are being carried out to the T. So that is, I'm betting on that to be in a better position earlier than June to be able to do something with this account. I'm just projecting with everything, with all the interviews and everything else that's going on over the next 30 to 60 days. I don't want to promise and then under-deliver.
Get it? Yep.
So,
great. Under-promise, over-deliver.
yeah.
I like that better.
I think our fiscal recovery is true. It's real. We have been, I know everybody's anxious to do something. I think our measured approach has been what has gotten us to where we are now. So, the other thing that's a plus is Anna is familiar with the STAR program from when she was the financial person at Lehigh. So that's a plus for us too, if she's familiar with the program.
For budgeting and things like that, for street levy, we're doing Elder this year, correct?
For the actual payout?
Yeah, are we doing one of those loans again for?
Yeah, so Lehigh is being 50% funded by the SORTA grant, so we're funding half of that out of pocket. The Canterbury Inglewood project, we're getting half of that as a grant, the other half is a 28-year interest-free loan.
Okay.
And then the Elbrook project, we are funding out of pocket.
Okay. What's the cost number?
$220,000.
That's right.
So that fund is not there, partially because projects that we had hoped to have been completed already are getting delayed for several reasons. One of which being the construction companies still have materials, or the pricing isn't right for materials, so it's being delayed. It's going to push a lot of those payments to next year because you only pay to completion of the project. But it's there.
Right. Yep. I just, on that one slide in the financial packet, just saw the pool, checking pool account number or balance, and
The
bank bringing these starts to get a little.
Well, there are actually 2 other road projects that we're looking at too. Hamel likely will be funded in 2023 through the grant and interest-free loan process. and that'll be Hamel from Canterbury to the Cork line. Ridge Acres is made of concrete, and parts of it are deteriorating, but it is by no means in a condition to be replaced. There are sections of it where we need to take out the joints and do some deep repairs. The engineer is looking at doing that, which would be funded out of pocket. So that probably would be a 2023 project. In addition to
Not a lot of Ridge Acres was private.
the Ridge Acres belongs to the village.
Okay.
And then the third thing, the other thing that you guys, that council's being asked to pass this evening is legislation allowing for applications to the next round of SORTA funding. We will qualify to redo the Oldbrook and Wheatley Road intersections with new signals and new poles, in addition to enhancing some walking paths. Excuse me. So that will, where we were looking to get another grant to be able to do this, it seems like those grants are hard to get unless they are specifically tied to a development project. This is something that's metro travels those particular intersections, we can get funding for those. Of course, the number of people applying has doubled between last time and this time, but I think we have a good case and have a solid application to get that money.
The other thing I would consider is specifically regarding the street levy is, yes, the loans for 20 years, yes, the loans are 0 interest, but I would hate for the village to be 10 years down the line, and you have to go back and do a repair or reconstruct it, and you know, still that loan. So the other thing to consider moving forward, we have to look and see what revenues are, and sustain some of those 20 years lost. That will depend on what projects. It just needs to be budgeted for.
So what's the lifespan of the roads?
Exact
10 years?
I don't know. I highly doubt that we're 20 years.
Right.
So we've been trying to do a lifespan for 15 to 20 years on each of these projects, which is why, if you remember when they did the Sandville, they had a nice smooth road, and then they put down gravel that we had to deal with for months and months, it seemed. And then they put a sheathing down over that, and they put down the actual asphalt. So all of that is supposed to help that road keep from falling apart. The only problem that we're running into is the village's program prior to the last 5 years was that we did not replace curbs. We patched the curbs. So what we're seeing on the streets where the curbs were not replaced is the parts of the curbs that didn't get patched are all falling apart. So we may have to go into some of these streets at some point in time and repair the curbs. Hopefully not, but that's something that we want to be aware of. I would anticipate that 2024 will be a sit-out year for actually doing construction. That'll probably be a year of doing maintenance, to do sealing, maybe to do some of that curb patching that needs to be done and let that plant recharge itself.
To backtrack a little bit, the STAR account, and I think I already know the answer, but I wanted to hear from you guys. Some of these road fund accounts, can we park any of that money in the STAR fund?
Well, no, general fund dollars, what you get.
Just curious. I mean, if we're going to be delayed for a year. Okay. Any options out there to set that money somewhere? Is there something that's?
I can look into it, but it's tough because it doesn't have a general use like your general fund property taxes, your general fund taxes. There's, you can use it for whatever. But it's when you get into the special revenue funds where you're much more restricted.
Right, that's right. I figured I knew the answer, but again, if we can park $1 million over there, $200 a day.
No, that's not to say that we're paying it steadily now. That's a completely different project.
Right.
We are using those levy proceeds now. But we anticipated several payments to have been made already for projects on that would have been ongoing or near completion, and they haven't started this year. Again,
And what accounts do those funds actually sit in while we're waiting for disbursement? Does it sit in the general fund?
no,
Does
it
sit-
sits, well, in our internal accounting, fund accounting, each levy has its own segregated fund.
Right.
So, street levy funds are in Fund 2904. That's what they're counting. That's the street levy. We have a street construction maintenance and repair fund on 2011 in the village of Manor, and those can be used for street improvements, sidewalk improvements, vehicle purchases related to.
That's within the general fund, we just can't
That's
spend
an
it.
independent, that's another special revenue source.
I think Dana's question, we don't have 30 checking accounts at Fifth Third.
Yeah, that's kind of where.
We've got like 3 or 4,
Yeah.
but within internal, in the
Yeah, from the
administration.
accounting standpoint, we have to allocate all that.
But if you go to
I
Fifth
did
Third,
that, but I wasn't sure if we
The
we have
only
the street funds and we stick it in
Yep.
Fifth Third account D5. And
certain, it depends on this, certain resources are allowed to collect interest, other ones are not.
Okay.
And that's ours.
I think as we move towards the STAR fund, I think it would be prudent to make sure that we have some sort of guidelines in place, an ordinance or something around the type of funds that we can allocate money to. I know a lot of municipalities have, you can only put in money market CD funds like STAR fund, right? But there are other municipalities that get a little more adventurous with their funds.
The problem with the challenge with that is as you go off, the real benefit of Star Ohio is any municipality, any taxing jurisdiction in Ohio can participate, and the requirement of internal staff in terms of certifications and expertise are none, because we're not managing it directly. The challenge then, if you have to go to alternative sources, there's
So,
questions about.
I think we need to put some enforcement in place that in the future, if somebody says, I want to go invest in Netflix,
Right.
that is not, the more risky investment vehicles are not approved by charter or by ordinance or something like that. I don't think that's an immediate concern. I think, we're all kind of looking towards the STAR fund. But if some finance committee chair says, I've got a hot tip on a stock,
Some
we
language in the
need to
charter.
say that is not, I don't know if the village is in a position to have excess cash to throw at something. But there
On
needs
Twitter?
to be, I just will, as we foray into this new field, for Mr. Donald, maybe to say, is there model legislation for what types of instruments and vehicles that municipalities can invest in? Obviously, the STAR fund itself is very secure and low risk. But if we don't have anything that says that's where we have to go, that makes me nervous.
So there are 3 mentions of investment in our ordinances. 12301 is called the Treasury Investment Committee. 12310 is investment policy. 12303 is interest allocation. So apparently at one point in time, there must have been an investment committee. I don't know if this changes a little bit.
I know
It
we
was
used
the
to
mayor,
put money
clerk
in
treasurer, and
bonds.
solicitor. Participating in a federal general revenue sharing trust fund for the purpose of receiving monies paid to the village under state and local assistance. So that's another whole discussion. So that doesn't apply. The other one is under investment policy.
In my experience in my industry working with, not necessarily municipalities, but nonprofits and unions, for example, they always in their bylaws will have guidelines around the type of credit bonds, the types of instruments that are or are not allowed. So I think that as we continue to grow the reserve and get prudent and have the ability to invest, I think it would be wise for us to consider putting guidelines and rails on the vehicles. Agreed.
I would agree. If there are bullet points that things will be captured in the minutes this evening, we'll start the discussion with Mr. Manor.
I have a question. So, ultimately, the goal would be to just actually use the interest gained off the the principal that's in the account. So there also gonna be a guideline on how much money is going to have to remain as opposed to, you know, like, it has to be 2%, plus or something like that. Is that,
Yeah, the investment strategy, I think the council will need to decide what strategy or pursue. I think it does make sense to have a 5-year goal or a commitment. Dividends, pay dividends, as my brother-in-law says. But ultimately, it'll be up to this committee.
So as best as I can see here in the ordinances, there's no guideline.
And I get what I understand, there was some urgency to get involved with the STAR funds. And I'm very much pushing forward to get involved, but just to kind of, for those who are not, we're not missing out on a whole lot right now. Paying 44 basis points, so on $500,000, it's $2,000 a year. We are not missing out on cash rolling in by taking our time. I just want folks to know that in our due diligence, in March was 28 basis points, half of that. So we're missing out on $1,000 a year. So just for what that STAR fund is actually paying right now, let's go in and the administration said, let's put forward some proposals, let's do it right, versus just trying to jump in thinking that we're missing out on a whole bunch of money. So, yeah. It'll get better at the end of the year, but right now I want to
bring that up in full council.
Absolutely.
Because that was, because I think that was the feel. And then we got to understand $2,000 a month.
No, that's an annual percentage.
Because I think that monthly. Yeah, I think the thought was like 8% a year, which is incredible.
Literally on the front page of the website for Star Fund. It shows what the daily yield
It is the
is.
daily yield.
It's 44 basis points, so 0.44%.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to walk through that with anybody who wants to do the right numbers. All right, enough of the Star Fund. If everybody's good to move forward into some ARPA funding.
There's a couple other things that,
Yeah.
that we're coming up in council tonight for votes, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. This committee is well aware of what administration is requesting. One of them is the creation of a new fund. Will be Fund 2101. It's the Permissive Vehicle License Tax Fund. So most of you were aware of the report of the last audit, but for those of you who aren't, during the last audit, Perry and Associates, the firm hired by the State Auditor's Office to audit the village, recommended that the village establish a permissive vehicle license tax fund. And this was actually the second time this fund was recommended to us. And for this reason, I think village administration is requesting the council approve its creation this year. Historically, the village has received permissive vehicle license tax proceeds, and we've accounted for them as one of several revenue sources in the 2011 SCMR fund. We account for them, permissive vehicle license taxes, in a single line item, but in SCMR, there's 10 different revenue sources there. And what the auditor is saying, that revenue source needs to be isolated and segregated into its own. So to accomplish this, the administration is recommending again the creation of Fund 2101, permissive vehicle license tax, and we will transfer the corresponding proceeds from that line item I just mentioned in Fund 2011 to the new Fund 2101. Simultaneously, we are requesting the approval of appropriations in the corresponding fund funding amount to be made available to our village's service department. So we estimate permissive vehicle license taxes to be approximately $30,000 a year annually. We are going to hopefully, if council approves it, have a new fund. We will transfer that $30,000 from Fund 2011 to the new Fund 2101 in both revenues and appropriations.
This is just segregating out funds that are already received into a more compliant account.
Yes, exactly.
Where do these funds come from?
What's the revenue? Tickets?
Permissive vehicle license taxes. I tax. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different.
So it's just a percentage we get from the county based
From
on
the
their
state.
license date and their
So when you renew,
licensing.
when you renew your license plate,
Yeah.
the municipalities identify a portion of that.
Oh, so they're-
Yeah, there's a portion of those fees. No, it's unclear to me if it's licensed, actually, the registration, or the license plates. But they provide a breakdown. We get one month payment from them monthly, and they provide a breakdown. I'm not on the accounts receivable.
You don't know, then I feel better.
Paul, like Carolyn, do a great job at it. They see it on a monthly basis. But instead of placing those in Fund 2011,
But that's from the county, not the state, correct?
The
the
state.
state,
From the state.
Why would they recommend that we
it's for ORC.
Okay.
Why do the General Assembly single out these revenue sources? I don't know.
Okay.
Obvious.
Maybe, I
I
don't
always
know.
blame the law.
I don't know. They've recommended twice, so we resisted it the first time it was recommended because there was confusion on our end. We had the same question, why? I've reached out to several other communities. They also were unfamiliar with this recommendation. We had hoped to have a hard state audit this last audit cycle, but it was pushed to the next audit cycle. So that's an opportunity to revisit it again once the state auditor comes in themselves and audits the account. But it's been recommended twice. I would prefer, since I'm leaving, to get it done, make it, create the account, or create the fund, make the transfer, and then let our service department then use that to spend to buy their equipment, which they're already doing, because that is exactly when that's been appropriated on the appropriation side. What we're essentially doing is, in terms of the service department operations, we're saying we have $30,000 in appropriations for equipment that was in Fund 2011. We're zeroing that out, and we're making $30,000 available in 2011. Make sense? Yeah. And that leads to the final point, reappropriations. So village administration is also requesting other adjustments to village appropriations. One adjustment being requested is the appropriation of $150,000 from the village's carryover to purchase a piece of real estate in the village. So we're making this recommendation due to the property's strategic importance to planned and ongoing economic development goals, and really to rectify and continue a continuing area of life in the village. This one property has been a challenge for us since I've been here, and I suspect even longer. And fortunately, it sits at a location in the village that might be, from an economic development perspective, one of the strongest pieces of real estate in the village. We approached the owner of this property a month or two ago about the possibility of the village acquiring it, and he seemed very eager to go. I mean, he was getting cited quite a bit for property maintenance issues. I think he was just in over his head on the property, and we're providing essentially a way for everyone to work separate directions. So that's one of the appropriations that we're requesting. First off, does anyone have a question about this?
Just maintenance, once we acquire.
That would be, yeah, so the village has also acquired a property in the same general vicinity. It's called the Roger Bean property right here. This property has also been a property of significant challenges for us in terms of property maintenance. Again, our property maintenance in Gulf Manor isn't to punish residents, it is to get compliance. And we have a responsibility to all the residents and property owners in the village, of Gulf Manor, to ensure compliance. This property right here has been a challenge for us, the village, the end of last year or earlier this year? We condemned it, but we acquired it not too long ago as well. The plan would be to package both of these properties as part of a demolition program in which we can scale the costs, essentially. That's the plan. We will acquire the properties and remove them so they're no longer a light challenge, property maintenance challenge for them.
So we hit the two bookends on that street. What's the communication been like with the other property owners or something?
We haven't approached them. I don't know, we have to talk to Mr. Putoff about it. I don't know where he currently is. I don't know if there's a property maintenance challenge on those properties either.
So talking about potential development issues at an open meeting can be done, but this is something we speak about specifically in the community engagement committee. So our wish would be to redevelop North Lehigh. So this is a fairly extensive area. Coupling that with SOAR funds to redo this intersection, in addition to being able to do something on the other side of the street, all the way to the gateway, which is trestle, could all be very transformative to the image and then spark redevelopment along Lehigh Road. So one of the things that we're discussing in the strategic plan discussions, as most of you have been aware of, is creating the city center at Lehigh and Sanibel, which would incorporate the municipal building and the park into making this a destination that people would want to come to Gulf. Part of the reason we're doing this is to get these business properties producing tax revenue for us again to increase our tax rates, or not our tax rates, but our tax income. It's a long, slow process, but it's also as part of the tax study that was done in 2019. One of the things that they emphasized to us is control of this property is what will allow us to be able to develop it going forward further. And Andy, you had a specific point of view on that. I don't know if you wish to state that. No, it's one of the things that we don't necessarily want to be in the business of owning property in the village, but we do want to be in a position to be able to develop property and to get people to bring money to the village and do business here. We have never, in the last, since 2013, when I first joined council, ever been in a position where we have money that we can do things like this and start to control our future. So this is huge. The other piece of that is there are monies that are out there that are available to us in grant funding. We just applied for a lot of money today. Part of the tenets of getting that money is to show that we are also investing other resources. So it's a match kind of thing. A year ago, I never would have thought we would have been in this position. So we did not get the grant funding to pay for 2200 Sanibel. It was disappointing. However, this particular property is in a position now that we never thought we would be in to be able to acquire this property, and we feel like it's an opportunity we just have to move forward with.
Without control of the corners, if it's real.
Yeah, from my perspective, this is an opportunity that the village fortunately in a position to have the resources available to acquire it. And we have a property owner who's in a position to want to unload it, it's motivated, it's a win-win for everybody. And ultimately, controlling this property is going to help the village's near-term, medium-term, and long-term strategy to continue to be sustainable.
It's about half the cost of the other property.
Directly, you've never sold it.
Almond Land is pretty good. I have a tour of Phoenix, and they're downtown. The city owns the land and leases the building, so they're making money off of hotels or whatever. And then they get to control what is built in the city. Because they do money. So
That's a good one.
mm-hmm.
You'll see a lot of companies, McDonald's, real estate companies, they'll keep the land.
Mm-hmm.
And you might see different businesses show up on it.
Well, that's why you get with all those Kroger carcasses all over because
Yeah.
they own the land and
And
they
they
have
won't sell it for nothing.
clauses. Another grocery store can't go in with it, so yeah.
When you bring that up, I just had a conversation 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the short-term goal to do this way on maintenance department is to turn that into a nice grassy field. The long-term goal is that at some point in time, once we do the things with the strategic plan we need to do, and then hopefully engage Urban Fast Forward, who's a consultant that will help us figure out what our place in the marketplace is, then we would hopefully be able to identify a developer who would be able to work this project for us. And this would be a great place to do a number of things.
So you would like to do an RFP for ideas?
We could.
You know,
The one thing
They
that
go away when you think.
RFP,
What's that?
request for proposal or request for qualifications on the firms.
You're an acronym people, I tell you.
I know, I work for
You
city,
city
I got a million.
You were positioned at it.
The one thing I just want to reiterate too is, we did the TAP study, technical assistance panel study with the county, and with SME, subject matter experts from all sorts of fields, real estate, public administration, developers. In the report, it specifically mentioned the necessity of site control, and this is the location that they see without. Where it should happen if it can. Unfortunately, we're in a position to kind of get that ball rolling. All right, there's two other ones. We're running out of time quickly. I just want to push base on. Village administration is requesting the council also approve $50,000 from the carryover to be used to cover expenses related to the village's 75th anniversary celebrations. These resources will be used to cover expenses related to two specific village events on the same day. The village's Safety Day initiative, as well as the, I'm not sure the correct name for it, so Sharon, but the community party in the park.
Celebration 75.
Celebration 75. That'll be held in the evening of the same day of the Safety Day.
What was the dollar?
15,000.
Say that 50.
I mean,
This is damn good hot dog.
It sounded like 50, and I was looking. Whoa.
Yeah, I'm
So-
not fucking, I'm just.
So just so you understand what this is being envisioned is this is going to be a thing. It will probably, this is going to be on Sunday, September 18th. It will likely start at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. There will be booths. There will be a community picnic. The community picnic likely will be free to for people to get food. So it'll be kind of like what we did for the 4th of July. The afternoon will be presentations. We're hoping to have carnival rides from the circus there, which will go into other afternoon activities with a concert at 6 o'clock and fireworks at 8. So that all takes money to make that happen. I don't believe we used the full 15,000, but it's there to be judiciously doled out as we need to make commitments at this point. And the exciting thing is we will actually have a concert in the amphitheater on the stage. That's like first time that's ever happened. So.
And then the last significant appropriation adjustment is an adjustment to the village's 2081 fund. That's the Federal Law Enforcement Trust in the amount of $9,582.50. So if you recall at a previous council meeting, council gave a thumbs up on the purchase of a new vehicle for the village police department. This purchase was made using existing appropriations from other line items within the fund. The supplement will be made possible due to an increase in forecasted receipts from this fund, and we will use the supplement to cover those payroll-related expenses that we robbed Peter to pay for. Okay. So we've checked it out, $120,000 this year. We forecasted $150,000. We're going to bump that up to $160,000, again, to be conservative. But I think I'm confident, and Chief's confident that the revenue's going to be well. And that's the end of the major appropriation adjustments. Hopefully, council will approve this evening, and again, I can answer any questions that you might have about that.
Good. All right.
Sorry, Mr. Measure, one last thing. Tonight is my last meeting here, and I wanted to thank everyone on this committee, and Ron for hiring me 3.5 years ago. I loved my time here, and I'm really going to miss it. So, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Hell of a job.
And a report.
Anything under our the 2023 tax budget preparations?
No, I think we already talked about when we first spoke about it.
Perfect. Next finance committee meeting is scheduled for May 23rd. Audit committee will be before that. Exciting time.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm thinking. No, do we want to, so two things. If you are interested in working with the Celebration 75 committee, they're meeting Thursday morning at 9:30 in Community Hall. And then Mr. Smith had expressed some interest a couple of weeks ago. So we'd like to get people connected to that. The other thing is, did you want to mention after the other meeting?
Yes, after council tonight, we're gonna have a little going away celebration with the light refreshments. Anyone is welcome.
Thank you so much.
Was the chair of the finance committee for the last 4 years? 5 years? Either way, multiple years. Thank you. To all those that have served over the course of the last many years, appreciate your guidance, wisdom, Mr. You're on to exciting things, and wish you the best for your future.
Appreciate it. I'm always going to be a supporter and a fan and a cheerleader for the village of North Manor. I think the village is in a much, much stronger position today than it was when I started, and that's a lot thanks to all of you and your wisdom and your willing to try new things and be confident. And Ron, thank you so much too. I think brighter days are here, and I see no reason why the village of North Manor can't have this. We're talking about the 75th anniversary. I see no reason why the village of North Manor's next 75 years can't be better than yours.
You could be here for that one. So Andy has done a superb job, more than I could have. It's really good trying to keep this together. I'm gonna miss you. Lizzie, my heart's very proud.
All right. motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're gonna need tissues.
I think-
I need a